Hi tatting lovers and welcome to Pimcraft. Today we are going to do the speed rings. These techniques you can apply for making speed rings with 2 shadow tattings and 2 different colors. Without further ado, let's get started. In front of me here I have 2 different colors of shadow tatting. The color blue is for the shadow A. And I'm using this to making a loop, and I'm gonna start with the first 2 stitches with the picot from my left hand side. These are the normal stitches, and I'm gonna join to do a lockjoy. As I have mentioned in the previous video, when you do the lockjoy, you must always pass the shadow through the loop in order to lock the joy. Stitch the second half. So after that one, I'm gonna do 8 ds, 1 picot and 1 ds. The total will be 2 ds joy, 8 ds, 1 picot and 1 ds. And I'm gonna turn half of the rings to do the second part. As you can see here, I swapped my shadow to shadow B, which I holding the color pink. And I'm gonna use to do 2ds with the second half unflipped and the first half unflipped. If it's happened that you don't know how to do with 2 shadow tattings, please check out my previous video in these specific techniques. And I hope you learned something new there. Next, I'm doing the lockjoy by passing the shadow through the loop. I have to slip this knot back into the picot in order to be able to close the rings. And continue to tag 8 ds, 1 picot and 1 ds. Just to remind you that these are unflipped stitches, unlike the first half of the ring. Turn the work, close the ring by grabbing the shadow A, arrange a little bit, and you can pull it out to close the ring. Just keep it in mind that there will be a small knot above the rings when you're joining to the picot. Next, we are going to do 2 ends with 2 shadow tattings. I put the white sticker on the shadow A because I have the same shadows. And in this way, I can define which shadow is A and which shadow is B. First, I am going to stitch 1 ds, and next, I'm going to hide the ends inside of the stitches. A side note, you can cut the ends after 5 ds. And I am going to tag 14 stitches like this, and you can close the rings. Next, I'm going to swap my shadow to shadow B. We can put the shadow aside. This is the shadow B. And the end of the shadow B you can insert from the back of the work, just like this. And I am swapping the shadow once more. And I make the loop with the shadow A and start doing the normal stitches with the first and the second half flipped. This step may take time and require a lot of practice. The good part is you can always use these skills in every tatting. Once you tagged all the required stitches, we are going to tag the second half. This is where we are going to tag the second half unflipped knots. We will begin with the second half knots, then the first half. The second half knots, the shadow must go over the loop thread and insert back into the loop. The first half knot, the shadow must go under the loop thread and pass it back to the loop. This is another way to do the split rings. We have to turn the work in order to stitch the second half, but we stitch the same as the second half and the first half unflipped. Last but not least, we are going to do the split rings with two colored threads. The shadow A is our main shadow. We use this shadow to form a ring and to tag the first half of the ring. The shadow B is our secondary shadow. We are going to use this shadow to tag the second half of the rings. First thing first, we must hide the ends inside the stitches. Turn the work to do the second half. This is how I conceal the second end. Be very careful of these steps, otherwise you may have to start all over again. This should be good enough to hold the ends. Continue to stitch accordingly. With two colored threads, it will be much easier to separate the first and the second half of the rings. I personally like to tag with one colored thread, but two colored threads is also refreshing. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something new today. Until next time. Bye bye.